welcome to Bickering Book Reviews. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Becky.
And today we're talking about Gatekeepers by Jen Lancaster. So we both got it through NetGalley as an e-arc.
Sure.
And I'm just going to give a quick rundown of what's going on in the book. So there are a lot of perspectives kind of going on at the same time. And it's got Stephen, Owen, Kent, Mallory, and Simone. They all live in an upper-class suburb of Chicago. The adults in this town are obsessed with outdoing each other, and that pressure trickles down to their children. Something really isn't working in this town because it has a higher than normal rate of suicide in its teens. Will these teens be able to find the connection they need to rise above suicidal thoughts and overcome the suicide cluster that has begun in their town as of right now?
Okay, so first thing, I was interested in this book because I think it's super relevant. Suicide clusters are things that are happening, and there needs to be more discussion about suicide with teens.
Well, and even how to address suicides within the media, because, you know, the way media draws attention to suicides does impact whether or not other teens or other people feel that it's an option.
Right. That being said, I was not a fan of this book.
I wasn't either.
It's too long. It's over 400 pages long.
See, but it's not, I don't have a problem with the length because I read long books. It's just, the voices didn't work for me.
It felt long.
It felt very long.
So this is like a book about people that are dealing with suicides in their school, and there are things that have happened before. The first suicide doesn't start for almost 200 pages, happen for almost 200 pages.
On the page. I mean, there are others that have happened, but...
There are all these narrators, and 3 of them sounded exactly the same to me.
See, they sounded similar to me. However, my issue was these teenage boys didn't sound like teenage boys. They sounded like teenage girls, but they sounded like an adult version of what teenage girls would sound like. The voices, I mean, it made it impossible for me to connect to this book.
Well, and like there's so many references, and the references are dated. Like, there's a lot of 16 Candles. There's one point where he says, like, I'm not Jake Ryan. How many teen guys know who Jake Ryan is? Like, reading this book, how are they going to be like, oh, I totally get this. I love 16 Candles.
I mean, if they were going to refer to it, it'd be like, yeah, that guy from 16 Candles.
But how many of them?
And I don't even know if they really watch it.
I don't know. And
well, and then my other thing is, I really felt like the suicide was kind of dealt with, like, very flippantly. Like, I felt like they use it as dark humor, but it wasn't seriously addressed, and so it just felt irreverent of suicides.
I don't know. I think that one of the good things I felt like she did was, particularly with Mallory, they showed kind of how it impacted her, somebody she cared about killing themselves. But I didn't care. I didn't care about any of these characters. And when the ending
came, any of the characters.
And the ending just didn't work. It just didn't fit. It was just like, it just was thrown on there.
Well, I think by the end, it didn't really matter to me. See, but the weird thing is, like, the author wrote this because it was a very personal subject. Like, right. She lived in a town like this. There were suicide clusters going on around her. So that's why it was just so very hard for me to understand why it came across the way that it did.
So I think that what would have worked way better, from what I can tell from this author, is if she had written a book about the parents and the suicide, like the guidance counselors coming in and trying to help the kids, instead of writing it from the perspective of the kids.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because she's an adult writer like that, it would have worked better because that's kind of her wheelhouse. But I don't know. It didn't work for me, and it was a struggle.
I finished it last night because I had to. And people on Goodreads are loving it, but I was reading the reviews, and almost 90% of the people who reviewed it on Goodreads who loved it said, oh, she's one of my favorite authors. I've loved all of her adult stuff, and I don't know how often they read this genre.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's really bad, and like the best thing I can say is I love the cover.
The cover was cool.
Yeah.
Well, no, and I like the one part where, like, they're talking about, like, gatekeepers, and they made, like, a little, like, necklace symbol of a gate. Like, that was just one piece in there somewhere. Like, that is very kind of visual, and I think you really could get, if people really love this book, that would be something you could sell in stores and different things. Right. But I just don't know if it's going to get that level of commitment.
I don't see myself giving this to a teen because the average teen who comes in and like, I love 13 Reasons Why, I want more books on this subject, are not going to want it because of its length.
Yeah, no. Well,
13
it's
Reasons
length
Why
and
is a short book.
it's hard, like, and it's like a rough go.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're about ready to rate it. We're there.
Yes.
So our rating scale goes from 5 unicorns all the way down to 2 unicorns, and if it was terrible, it gets 1 horse because it doesn't deserve a horn. I don't know where I fall with this. I think I'm gonna give it 2 unicorns just because I don't know if I want to give it. I don't know if I want to give away my first horse.
No. So I'm giving it 2 because the topic is relevant. I just didn't like how it was executed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if even though the topic was relevant enough to make it, I'm still giving it a 2, whatever. So I'm just going to be happy in my rating.
Yep, and that's where we are on Gatekeepers by Jen Lancaster.
All right, so see you around.
Bye.